Hey everybody, what's going on? Rob Cesternino back for day 2 of our Traitors Season 3 preview series, where each day we're taking a look at each of the Traitors Season 3 players and giving a little bit of background about how they did on their show and what will make them such an exciting part of this Traitors cast. And we are back here today with the guy who is the top Traitors expert that I know. It's Pooya Zamakili. Pooya, how are you?
I'm doing great, Rob. We hit him with the old school. It's time to hit him with the new era. I'm very excited for today.
Yeah, if you missed it, we had our Boston Rob preview, somebody that myself and today's guest spent some time talking about on Dundee last season. You can check that out in our Traitors podcast feed at weknowtraitors.com. But today, one of the voices of our Deal or No Deal Island coverage that I spoke with about Boston Rob is today talking with us about a different survivor. We're talking about Carolyn Wiger here today. And with us for that, it's Jenny Autumn. Jenny, how are you?
I'm great. I'm very excited about this cast, about this person being on the cast. I'm so excited for this season, and when the cast started leaking, I knew that we would see Carolyn on our TV again at some point. But I don't think I was expecting, so soon and on the Traitors, but I love it. I'm so excited for it. It's going to be a wild ride no matter what, I think.
Right. Definitely maybe not what we were expecting to see here of Carolyn's next step, but we've got a lot to talk about because I love Carolyn. I had a great interview with Carolyn a couple of weeks ago. One of my, I think one of the best podcasts of this season, and fascinating person to talk to. Can't wait to see her on the Traitors. Jenny, what spoke to you about Carolyn? Why did you want to? We'd let you come here and talk about anybody. Why Carolyn?
Okay, well, Rob, you've done, you've covered all of these seasons of Survivors, and you've talked to a million people, but we talked about Carolyn a little bit during her season. I think I might have been on, like, when we were still doing voicemails type podcast. And I was very passionate about Carolyn while she was playing, because we've just never seen anyone like her. And this is probably a word that Carolyn would use to describe herself as well. And I think that she often does use this word to describe herself, and is the word that I think of when I think about why I love her and why she resonates so much with me is authentic. And she is truly just herself. She's clearly someone who has gone through a lot in her life, and that has shaped who she is as a person. And she has channeled that into just being the truest version of herself. And that has become, like, her superpower in these games. Like, I know that I talked about this with you, Rob, about Carolyn's empathy and the empathy superpower that she wields. And I just love that kind of person. Like, Carolyn is very much the kind of person that I would, she's got the magnitude to attract, or like the magnetism to attract certain types, right? She's not everyone's cup of tea, and she knows that. But for me, people that love people that, like, let's cut the bullshit. Like, let's cut the small talk. Like, I really want to get to know you and have these deep conversations. I love people like that, because there's a lot of that in me too. Maybe you don't see it all the time. Maybe you see a little bit of the BS and the small talk, but that she's very much my kind of person. I just find her fascinating as a person. And it's not a character. It's who she is. So that, I could go on, but that is like the summation of how I felt about her, and why she's just such a dynamic casting choice for Survivor, for any show.
Okay, well put, Jenny. Pooya, do you have any thoughts about Carolyn being here in Traitors Season 3?
I think that Jenny described her perfectly. I will say, while I did also, like Jenny, expect her to be back on our TV screens, I did not expect her to be on the Traitors. I felt like, there's this new season of Survivor coming in the future. It's going to be all returnees. I was like, that's exactly where we're going to see her. Did not expect this pit stop initially. But I think the more you think about it, the more she's kind of the perfect casting. I feel like Carolyn's someone who is a hybrid of entertaining TV, but also has some game chops. And I think the entertainment part, the raw, unfiltered thoughts is what everyone thinks of. But I think there's some strategy in there that people will overlook because of the exterior, which I think is actually a huge asset for her in this game, which is also what has piqued my interest with her being here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Carolyn is somebody who was playing like ORGs and, is a little bit more of a serious gamer than people expect.
Yeah.
Now, Jenny, are you ready for a hot take that I'm prepared to drop here on this podcast?
Oh, snap.
Drop it like it's hot.
I think that Carolyn should be a traitor.
Ooh.
I think that, to me, look, Rob could be the traitor or Tony could be a traitor. Okay, we get that. We know what that would look like. Carolyn as a traitor to start, I think would be maximum entertainment for the traitors.
I mean, here's the thing, and I've been going back and forth on, what I think is the better role for her. What is her best chance for doing well in the game? And I don't disagree. I think that she actually has a lot of the skills to be a good traitor, certainly to be an entertaining traitor. What I worry about is there's a few things I worry about. One is how that impacts her. I think that Carolyn is someone who feels very deeply. She's a very emotional person. She's talked about this at length about her Survivor experience, how much she struggled with, being left out of things, or just the emotional toll that these kinds of games can, take on you. But she also is a gamer, and she has that ability. She does have a strategic mind. She does, like, we saw her scheme in Survivor. We know that she's capable of it. So I've kind of gone back and forth on, like, what would be harder for her emotionally, being the one deceiving and knowing that she's creating these emotional connections and bonds with these people, because she's going to find the other weirdos. You know what I mean? Like, that's what she does, and she loves to do it, and she's so good at it. I worry about, is she going to have a hard time emotionally deceiving people that she's grown an affection for? Because we know that she even struggled with that a little bit with, like, her relationships with Carson and Jam Jam. I believe that she is capable of it and can do it, but I think a lot about, like, especially how it works in Traitors, like how that can impact someone. But then I think about, okay, on the flip side, as a faithful, is she someone that is struggling with the feeling of everyone is lying to me? Because in the Traitors, like, at least in Survivor, you have, like, you put your trust in a couple of people, and that you're working in an alliance. You see proof that is a strong bond because you go through a couple of votes together. You have proof that you guys are, like, on the same team, right? And I just think in, like, the Traitors, there's just so much confusion and fear about every single person around you. And it's hard to say, but I also think, I know this is like a long answer. I also think that Carolyn has a really good BS meter. Like, I actually think that she could be extremely skilled in picking up weird behavior from other people. She's very, very perceptive. She's very emotionally intelligent. And I think that that gets lost in her kooky behavior and the way she wears her thoughts and emotions on her face. And I think that kind of, like, hides how much she is aware of what other people are doing.
Pooya, do you think that the producers would be thinking the way I'm thinking, that Carolyn would be a great fit for the Traitors, for being a traitor?
I think we've talked about, the different scenarios that you could see present themselves. I think obviously the chalk pick assumptions being a Boston Rob, being a Tony. I think if the producers want to send this cast into a bit of a tailspin, and they still want a survivor in that turret, you give it to Carolyn. And I think that Carolyn can handle herself quite well with it because, to what Jenny was speaking about, I feel like when it comes to not knowing who to trust or who's being honest with you, I think the Traitors have a bit of an edge and a bit of a easier road there, Rob, because the Traitors are the only 3 people or 4 people, however many they start with. They're the only people who know exactly who has what role. They know that they're the traitor. These 2 are traitors. The rest are faithful. So they still have to worry about will this person stab me in the back? Will this person curry favor? But that's all they got to focus on. Whereas with the faithful, they have to worry about that exact same thing of who they can trust and who will work with them. But also they have to figure out the added layer of who's a traitor, who's stabbing me, who's going after me. So I feel like it's almost easier to be a traitor with that regard. And I feel like I could see, and Rob, since you brought up your scorching hot take, the more we are talking about it and thinking about it, it's becoming less of a hot take to me personally. And I almost think this is the better route for her to go through.
Yeah, I think this is a good move. I kind of feel like the producers are going to land on this also. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Jenny, if Carolyn is not one of the traitors, okay, how do you feel like this game is going to look like for her in terms of how she will approach it as one of the faithful?
So one more point to the discussion about her being like, again, I agree. I think she would be an excellent traitor, but I think that because her strength is being authentic and connecting, when you are a traitor and your biggest objective is deceiving, and you have to play the game from the lens of a lie, I think that kind of like puts a limitation on what some of Carolyn's powers are. So like I love it, but I worry at the same time because that is what she's so good at, and I worry about her feeling like she is held back because she can't be her true self. But it could be extremely interesting to see how she still manages to do that while balancing the lie part of it,
Well, remind me if I'm misremembering this, because my memory with more and more of these shows coming on, I forget very quickly. But Carolyn had to, successfully, might I add, hit her idol for a long stint of time while, continuing making those bonds. And that is technically her, deceiving her allies. So
that is true.
She made a red X.
Yeah,
I know she planted fake idols. Like she definitely did deceptive stuff, which so that's why I think that she can do it. I just I don't know. I almost wonder, what does she want? Do you like, Rob, what do you think that she wants to do? Because some of these people go into these games and they're like, we know that like Netta, like it was like, I really, really want to be a traitor. And we know that, the other people have come in and they're like, don't put me on the show if you're not going to let me be a traitor.
I think they all want to be a traitor. I think that
all
Carolyn,
of them. Didn't Parv said she didn't even want to be a traitor?
it's like a small, usually with a cast of 20, I feel like there's like 4 people maybe who are like, nah, faithful is what I wanted. Everyone else is like, no, I was open to that. If they gave me the cloak, I would have worn it. I wanted it. So.
Yeah, I mean, she showed up in the turret that night, Jenny.
Yeah,
she didn't decline the invitation.
Well, no, but why you're not going to decline? But I think that I think that some people think about what their better role is. With that said, if she does end up being a faithful, I think that she could thrive, because for a few things, it just really depends on what her relationships are with some of these people and who the actual traitors are. And that's where it's like, you can think the thought experiment of what it could look like. That's what we're doing here. But like, I am left with a lot of big question marks because there's so many factors. I think, like I said, she is the kind of person that is very perceptive and can tell when she's being lied to or when she's not being respected, or like she's hyper focused on what other people's perceptions of her are. And I think that that can be very powerful. I know that she has had a lot of experience in her life with terrible people, and all of the parsing of lies and manipulation that she's unfortunately had to deal with in her real life. And that is like, it's sad to think about, but it is a skill that you kind of gain going through these experiences in your real life. And it is the kind of thing that could help her as a faithful, where she is so emotionally in tune that she can like sense changes in people's behavior. So I think that she could actually be a pretty good traitor hunter. Again, what I worry about is she cannot help but show on her face what she's thinking. She has given us a million, incredible facial reactions to things. And I'm just like picturing these round tables where she's not going to be able to hold back what she thinks about things. And I don't know if that's the kind of thing that keeps her around, because the traitors are like, Carolyn's a wild card, and she's someone that could potentially be, someone that we use as a shield and a distraction for us. Or is it the sort of thing where it gets her, murdered early in the game? I would hate for that to happen. Is she one of those people that is going to come off so obviously faithful that the traitors decide to clear her early, and just take care of it because they need, more chaos? I don't know.
I don't think, to me, if Carolyn is a faithful, I don't think she is a faithful that'll ever be fully cleared as faithful. I think there's always going to be suspicions, because Carolyn is a one of one human, in that I don't think you're going to know exactly, because some people, you'll meet them, you're like, I know how this person's going to operate, I know what they're thinking, I know how they, what they like, they don't like. I don't think you can clock Carolyn down like that, especially in a very small time frame. So I think she's going to have suspicion on her, which means the traitors are probably not going to murder her. All she has to do is survive the roundtables. And I think that the hardest journey for Carolyn might be that initial situation where, Carolyn is more of a personality, but also someone who, I think, again, one of one, you meet, you don't quite know where you stand with, versus a couple other people who kind of just like are neutral, and you're like, all right, well, this person seems like, eh. So if she can survive the first couple roundtables, I think she can ride it out for quite a while as a faithful.
Jenny, let's go back to Carolyn's Survivor season. Was there anything that you saw, or any moments that you remember that you feel like are good things to keep in mind as we consider Carolyn the traitor?
I mean,
The traitor's player.
like we've alluded to already, like the bird cage, the planting of the fake idol, having her own idol that no one knew about for majority of the game. Like these things where I think people kind of remember her first for her free spirited, kind of kooky, authentic personality, and her relationships with like the Tika 3, right? Like that alliance. People think about it that, and I think they forget about all of the little things that she was doing individually, outside of this alliance, that show that she has the prowess to to play. And like you said, Rob, like her experience with like orgs, like she's not one of these people that is like, I want to be on TV and I got cast on Survivor and now I'm playing a game. Like she loves this. She loves games. And so I think that we have to remind ourselves of those moments that she had on Survivor, where she was like a little bit like mischievous, and kind of getting up to things on her own. And trying to have as much fun as possible out there, which is what you really want to see on the Traitors. You want to see people doing stuff and like having fun with it. So I'm really, really hopeful that we're going to get some of these like confessionals. Like if she is a traitor, like I think you could get incredible stuff from her where she's like in the confessional, like being like, I can't believe I'm doing this. Like, those truly authentic personality moments from her because she's doing the thing. She's like, she's making the moves. So the other thing I remember from her time on Survivor is that she's very good at like picking up on like the people that just don't F with her. And she never tried to force a relationship with someone where she knew it was just never going to be the right thing. Like the way that she talks about the people that she identified in the game, either, on the original Tika tribe and then like at the merge point where she was just like, this person, we were just never going to have a game relationship. And she's very good at kind of just like sensing that early and figuring out what she needs to do to make sure that lack of relationship isn't going to cause her to lose the game or like lose her footing in the game. So I could also see her having influence on getting people banished that she senses as like this is never going to be someone that is going to help me. And I think even as a faithful, like I could see Carolyn being a faithful and letting the vote go to a fellow faithful because it's someone that she knows is not going to be on Team Carolyn, and they could potentially get her banished at another point. And so I just think that she's like very skilled in that, and I could see that translating into the game.
Okay. Let's talk about some of these relationships that Carolyn is going to have with the other Survivor players specifically.
Oh my gosh.
So let's go right to Boston Rob. Okay, Jenny, you studied Boston Rob. You watched him on Dondi over his entire reality TV career. I think Rob comes in at an interesting place post Dondi of that. Could we see this new evolution of Rob, who might be a little bit more patient with some of these other interesting personalities? How do you feel like that the Rob post Dondi comes in interacting with Carolyn?
It's so hard to think about because I'm trying to figure out like I can't help but think about, I don't think that this is going to happen, but if two of the Survivor people ended up being traitors, because I'm thinking a lot about Carolyn in combination with the three Survivor men that are the cast here, because they're all very interesting combinations that I'm thinking about. With Rob, I think that, yeah, you're right. Like he is more patient at times, but he also sometimes has that like, grumpy dad energy where he's like, I don't have the patience. So I could also see him not being able to vibe with Carolyn just because, he feels like it's too much maintenance. But I also like, I'm trying to think of comparing people like from Dondi, like that, and that's why Carolyn is so interesting to me. It's like I'm like, Rob hasn't played with a Carolyn, I don't think. Like do you really feel like that there were people on that season that were, big personalities and maybe a handful at times, but I don't think like in the same way that Carolyn could be seen by a Boston Rob as like a challenge.
I mean, Rob has played with all different types of people. I don't know if there is another Carolyn. I think Pooya, you called her a one-on-one. So I don't know if there's an exact parallel for Carolyn to compare Rob's playing partners with.
Yeah.
I will say Rob has shown on his stints on the show that he's willing to collaborate, clash, bond with any type of person, no matter how different they may be. So I think that I could see a world where he brings, like, he offers a hand to Carolyn and they navigate together potentially.
Mhm.
But I think it'll be interesting because until we know who the traitors are, a lot of this is going to be like question marks, because then we have to think about a world where if you're a survivor traitor, do you try and sacrifice the survivor early just so that people don't assume the survivors are together? Because it's like, well,
Yeah.
if one of us is bad, why would we take out one of our own, kind of thing? And then if that's the conversation, then who gets the cut? That's the question I have.
As far as Carolyn working with Rob, as long as Carolyn is not gunning for Rob, I think Rob is just going to be looking for allies. So as long as Carolyn is like happy to work with Rob, I think Rob's going to be happy to work with Carolyn.
I agree.
And then with these other two guys, in Jeremy and Tony, that Jenny, tell me if you see it the same way as I do. I think I see one potential working relationship and one maybe not such a hot relationship. I think that Carolyn and Jeremy will be fine.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that Jeremy is a super patient guy, actually. I don't know if he's ever really, I mean, I'm thinking about some of like the San Juan del Sur people, you know, in his first go around, like there are definitely some characters there, and maybe that's not the perfect example of him at his like most patient.
But it's mostly men, I think, that end up pissing off Jeremy.
True. Same, Jeremy. But no, you're right. And I think I love the idea of this partnership because I think that it would be so fun. There's a really fun balance between the two because Jeremy is so like calm and cool and just a likable guy. But I almost wonder, and again, I said that like Carolyn, you know, attracts the other offbeat type people. Is Jeremy almost like too normal of like just like a down to earth family guy that him and Carolyn don't have enough in common for them to truly connect? I think they could have a great working relationship, but I also think Carolyn's the kind of person that she's looking for that like personal connection to have the game relationship. So I'm like having a hard time thinking about
like what will they talk about?
Yeah, what will they talk about? But that's the thing is like I think that they're both such incredible social players that it's like maybe this is the way that it proves like they truly, you know, they have the sauce. That Jeremy is finding lots to talk about with Carolyn, and I believe that he could. I'm just like wondering about it because when you look at the other people that kind of Carolyn gravitated towards on her season of Survivor, none of them were the kinds of people that I would consider a Jeremy or a Rob. And which is why it's so funny to think about, because I know that we're about to get to the Carolyn and Tony, two very wild individuals. But Carolyn likes the wild ones a little bit. You know what I mean? You know, someone to match her freak.
Yeah.
Is it one of those things where it seems so crazy that you can't imagine that it could work?
Yeah. Jenny, did you happen to listen to the interview I did with Carolyn a couple of weeks ago? Yeah. And she talked about her pants and that, you know, she wanted to see how close her pants could get to the fire. And I made the analogy of like her wanting to talk to Russell Hantz on her podcast is a little bit like she just wanted to see how close they could get to the fire.
And also she won't shy away from you know, like something that seems a little dangerous and a little exciting, and just to test those limits. The way that she talked about Russell, and this is not to say that Russell and Tony are all the same, but
you wouldn't be the first person to make a parallel between Russell and Tony.
Of course. I think that the way she talked about Russell and how she was like wanting to get to the core of like, why are you this way? You know, I think that she could see someone like Tony being like, what a wild person you are. I need to know more. I think that she is drawn to that kind of energy, like that chaotic energy, and being like, I want to figure this out, especially if they show any sort of kindness and grace towards her, which I think Tony is definitely capable of doing. But I also see Tony being like, calling her Caroline and
I mean,
just
he called
not having the time of day.
Jeremy once upon a time. Yeah.
So is Jeremy going to be Jeremiah? Even though they
played together. They played
yeah,
together.
maybe he forgot.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's bring in some of these Big Brother people. I don't know if Carolyn is a Big Brother person. I suspect not. Pooya, do we have any information about this?
Not that I know of. I feel like, especially with these last couple of seasons, if Carolyn had been talking any Big Brother, I would have seen it. Would have been on my radar.
Mm-hmm.
But I, alas, have not seen anything.
I feel like she's a Survivor purist, but not sure about that. But
I've never seen her talk about it, but I feel like I'm willing to bet she's met Big Brother people, like at
for sure,
events and social things, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know what her history is with the show.
Okay. So then we have Danielle Reyes, we have Brittany. Okay. Jenny, let's start with Brittany. How do you feel about the Brittany Carolyn dynamic?
I mean, I love them both so much. That I think that I want to see it as a relationship that could work. But I don't know if it will. Because I think that Brittany is the kind of person where she uses humor sometimes, I think, as like a wall, like an emotional wall, which can be super helpful. But I've been saying, I think that Carolyn kind of gravitates to the people that are letting it all hang out. You know what I mean? And I think that Brittany can do that to a degree. Like, she's obviously very hilarious, very personable, can make fun of herself, which I think is something that Carolyn really likes, like people that can laugh at themselves and don't take themselves so seriously. Yep. Definitely see a lot of that in Brittany. It would depend on how much Brittany gives back to Carolyn in terms of like shedding some of those layers. If I like I said, I feel like if Brittany seems closed off for any reason towards Carolyn, that Carolyn could quickly just be like, this girl doesn't like me. And that's it. So it's really, really hard to say. It kind of depends. And that's why it's so fascinating to think about, what everyone's roles are. Because if you get a Brittany who is a traitor, another person that I would love to see a traitor, actually. And she's maybe not, she's kind of holding back a little bit. Like, that could be a red flag to someone like Carolyn. But God, I would love to see the two of them, matching each other's freak.
Pooya, and then as far as Danielle goes with Carolyn, I could see that going either way also.
Okay, well, what do you mean by either way?
I just feel like that. I think that Danielle is looking for allies who are a little bit more like play it closer to the vest. If Danielle's ideal ally is Jason, Carolyn is not a Jason.
No,
I don't think so, but I think she could be. But it would require a lot more of a conversation before you get to that decision. And with the time crunch, I agree. I don't think you're looking at Carolyn as your Jason at all.
Yeah.
But I did spend the last 3 minutes sifting through Carolyn's Twitter. No mention of Big Brother anywhere. Not a thing.
So if she's not familiar, and that's
but
the other thing.
Danielle's gonna know who Carolyn is.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
For
sure.
Definitely. And that's the interesting thing. It's like, are people going to feel threatened by Carolyn because of if they know her from Survivor and if they know her game? Because part of what made her so successful was being underestimated, but then also just like she ultimately doesn't get any votes at the final tribal council, which is, I think wrong. I think she deserved at least a vote. But I don't know if people have seen that game, because even Carolyn talks about it, about playing, I know that when she talks about it with you, Rob, about playing Survivor again, and she's like, can I do that again? Because now everyone knows what I'm like and what I'm capable of, what I'm doing. So it's like, does that translate to Traitors? Like, are these other Survivor players, in the very least, the other Survivor players probably are familiar with her game? Are people looking at her and saying like, oh, she knows that she comes off kind of unserious, but there's a lot more going on there than we realize? Like, are they actually just like caught up in it again, and they get distracted by like how real and unfiltered she is, and they forget about all of the strategic stuff that can be happening?
All right, Jenny, here's another good question. Carolyn is going to be in this Traitors Manor with all these Real Housewives and Bravo Lebs. Do you see Carolyn fitting in with these people, or do you think that this is a potential clash?
I will admit I'm not like fully well versed in some of these people, but I almost feel like you're more likely to get some kind of offbeat characters from some of these other shows. There's one person that I actually really can see Carolyn connecting with, and that's Gabby from The Bachelorette and Bachelor Nation, because Gabby is very authentic as well. She is and she's a weirdo too, and she would call herself that for sure. And I think that that's someone that I could see Carolyn kind of picking out, like, when she connected with Franny, and she found Franny, and they kind of had like a beautiful friendship out on Survivor. Not that I really think that Franny and Gabby are like the same person, but I just see that same sort of energy being something that Carolyn would connect with in Gabby. I also could see her again. Wells, I just think Wells is like such a likable, funny guy, that I could see him really giving Carolyn the energy that she's looking for from someone. So I think that could go well. Now, the Housewives, I don't know them as well. I always worry about the Bravo Leb type, because they can rub people the wrong way. They might be looking for a little bit of a fight sometimes. They know how to bring the drama.
Might get a little clicky.
And it can be a little performative at times. Like, I know it's all like, oh, no, we keep it real, but it's like they also know how there's like a performative piece to it, right? And I think that that's the kind of stuff that Carolyn wouldn't like. So the non-Survivor Big Brother people, it's a mixed bag. I feel like a few people I could definitely see it with. I could see like a Bob the drag queen, like that working for her. I don't know so much about the Housewives, but I don't know them as well, so it's hard to say. I'm just like a little worried about it.
Jenny, is there anything else on your mind that you want to get us thinking about as far as Carolyn playing on the Traitors?
That like, this is a one-of-a-kind reality TV casting choice in general, and I think that it was such a ride to see her play a full game on Survivor, and I think it's going to be really, really exciting to see her game in a totally different format, and what she's taken away from her experience. There's obviously been a lot of she's someone who has already grown so much and done so much introspection in her life even before playing Survivor, and we know that afterwards that kind of leads to more of that like self reflection. And I just think that she's such an interesting person and will absolutely give good television regardless of what role she is assigned in this game. And I really truly hope that we get her for as many episodes as possible, because she will deliver. I'm very, very excited about it.
Yes. Okay. Pooya, anything you want to add about Carolyn before we see her play?
This podcast has gotten me more hyped than I may have been on Carolyn prior to this. Not to say that I've been unhyped, but I feel like I'm more excited now than I was. And I think it's because initially in the back of my head, I was like, I don't think Carolyn's going to fit with this cast. I don't see longevity. The more we discussed it today, I absolutely do see longevity, and that makes me very pumped to see her play. I think the org knowledge, that kicks in, that strategic knowledge kicks in, but I think the very personable personality that, again, Carolyn, one of one, can bring, I think she's going to have a fun time. She's going to connect with a lot of people, and I also hope we get her for as many episodes as we can.
All right. Well, I'm very excited to see Carolyn play Traitors Season 3 coming up January 9th. Make sure you don't miss any of our daily pre-season previews. You can get them all. Go to WeKnowTraitors.com to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss anything. And then we'll have all of our coverage coming up starting after the premiere. Tomorrow, our co-host from Deal or No Deal Island, Chappelle, Jenny, is going to join us to talk about Danielle Reyes. We will have the Danielle Reyes preview coming for you coming up tomorrow. Jenny, what exciting things do you have coming up?
Well, Chappelle and I have just finished our coverage of House of Villains Season 2. So depending on when you're watching this, that has either dropped, or the finale coverage has dropped, or will be dropping soon. So if you haven't had the chance, if you've been too busy with everything else to watch this season of House of Villains, it was wild. It was a really great time. Chappelle and I had a great time covering it. WeKnowVillains.com. Everything is there, and we had an excellent time with that. And then beyond that, looking forward to the new year, not just for the Traitors, Dondi Season 2. We got some heavy hitters, including one that was on the previous season of the Traitors. So gearing up for our coverage of that in the new year. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Follow me on social media. I will be posting about what's coming up at Jenny Autumn. And yeah, it's been a good time.
Jenny, great job today talking about Carolyn. Pooya, what else is coming up for you?
Well, Traitors UK will also be coming in January 1st. Remember, Rob, when January used to be the off season? That's long gone. But Traitors UK will be back January 1st. So alongside the January 9th premiere of US, I will be talking both seasons. So be on the lookout for those. 90 Day Fiancé, The Hot Mess Express waits for nobody. So I'll be there as well. You can find me on all socials at Pooyaism. Find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/Pooya. That's where I am when I'm not podcasting.
All right. Well, fun stuff today talking about Carolyn. Can't wait to come back tomorrow and talk about what's coming up with Danielle Reyes. Thank you for joining us. How do you think Carolyn is going to do? Let us know in the comments. Take care, everybody. Have a good one. Bye.